Are you working on your own game, learning how to draw, or trying to play an instrument but hate everything you make? Feel jealous of people who are already good and avoid working on it, wondering why it feels so hard? Well, you're not crazy. These are actually very common feelings among creative people, especially if you're a beginner. In this video, I'm going to talk about the top 3 struggles beginner creative people face. Hi friend! If this is your first time in the channel, I am Gael. I am a game developer and I am working solo on a survival horror game called Silent Corruption. And in this channel, I share my creative journey and all the things I learned along the way. Lots of people talk about the technical side of making or working on creative projects, but far fewer talk about the mental side of it. More often than not, the most difficult part of a project isn't the work itself. It's dealing with your own head, doubts, fears, and second guessings. That's why in this channel I focus on topics that will hopefully help you feel more validated and confident in your own experience working on your own creative projects. So with that said, let's start with the first struggle beginners face when starting out. Do you ever look at someone else's work and instantly feel annoyed, jealous, and even a bit angry just because it's better than yours? Almost every time I scroll through social media, I see something incredible. A beautiful piece of artwork or a game that looks way better than anything I am making. For a long time, whenever I saw a really good game, I felt this sharp hit of jealousy, and my brain went straight to, well, of course it looks this good, they're just naturally talented. Then that thought will turn on me instantly. I would start telling myself that I could never make anything like that because I was missing some special X factor that some people are born with, which makes being successful easy for them. And just like that, everything I was working on felt pointless. I would look at my own work and think, why am I even trying? There were honestly moments where that feeling alone almost made me quit. What started to change things was listening to podcasts and interviews with developers, artists, and entrepreneurs who are already where I want to be. And one thing kept coming up again and again. When they first started, they were not good. Their early projects were messy, unfinished, and mostly ignored. They felt insecure, frustrated, and stuck the same way I did. Hearing that over and over made something finally click. Everyone's first work is bad, but we rarely see any of that because it's not good yet. So it barely gets any attention. And it's the exact same with our first works. They fall flat because they're not very good yet. But where most people quit, they kept going despite the cringe and the crickets. And that made me realize that it's not about talent or some magical X factor. The real difference between them and me is simple. They had kept going longer than I had. And because of that, they have more experience than me on things that work and don't work. Once I realized that, my perspective shifted. Instead of seeing amazing games or artwork as proof that I was not good enough, I started seeing them as a glimpse of what might be possible for me one day. Now, every time I see an amazing game, I think, one day, that'll be me. Not because I suddenly believe I'm special or more talented than anyone else, but because I finally understand what I'm looking at. I'm not seeing raw talent or a lucky break. I'm just seeing years of pushing through the cringe, small improvements, failed ideas, abandoned projects, and moments where they probably wanted to quit too. That thought alone changed everything. The way you view other people's creative success is a choice. Even if it doesn't feel like one at first, you can choose to be jealous or inspired by other success. When you are starting out, it's easy to see someone else's work and think, I'll never be that good. That mindset only traps you. It breeds resentment, self-doubt, and the belief that there's no point in trying because you're already behind. But that perspective is not the only way to see things. You can shift it. Instead of looking at their work as something unreachable, try seeing it as a glimpse of what's possible for you. They are not special or chosen. They are just farther along the same path you're on. So the next time jealousy creeps in, treat it as a signal, not a verdict. It's showing you what matters to you and what you could create if you keep showing up, learning, and doing the work. So, you had this really clear vision in your head of what you want to make. But the moment you actually try to create it, everything falls apart. What comes out looks nothing like you imagined. The proportions are wrong, the mood is off, and the whole thing just feels bad. As I mentioned before, I'm working on my survival horror game Silent Corruption. The main character of the game is Jane, a British woman in her late 20s. From the beginning, I had a very specific vision for her. I wanted her to feel strong and independent, with a tomboyish edge, but still feminine and unique in her own way. When designing Jane, I naturally drew inspiration from some of the classic female protagonists of survival horrors. Characters like Claire Redfield from Resident Evil and Heather Mason from Silent Hill were huge influences. They strike a balance between vulnerability and strength that makes them memorable, and I wanted Jane's to capture something similar. The first time I attempted Jane's 3D model, I was still learning the ropes of character modeling, and surprisingly, it didn't come out as I imagined. She looked stiff, off in proportions, and just amateur. It was frustrating because I could see the character in my head perfectly, but translating that into a 3D model was proving much harder than I expected. Eventually, I realized that Jane's design needed a lot more work, and I couldn't settle for the first attempt. I kept going back to her model, experimenting with different shapes, textures, and details. Over time, I ended up completely redesigning and remodeling her 4 separate times. Each iteration taught me something new, not just about Jane, but about my own skills as a 3D artist. Finally, after months of trial and error, I landed on the current version of Jane. She now perfectly matches the vision I had in my mind. Strong, distinctive, and full of characters. Seeing her come to life exactly as I imagined her was incredibly satisfying. Creative work is built through trial and error, through iteration after iteration. If it looks like crap right now, it just means that you need to keep working on it. Keep working, keep refining, and eventually it will start to match the vision in your head. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, I actually have a Patreon where I share even more tips, insights, and behind the scenes of my game. If that sounds interesting, you can check it out in the link below. So, you're working on something and it takes forever to finish. So long indeed that you lose motivation, get burned out with it, and just stop doing it. Sounds familiar? This is actually quite common, but there is a way to keep working on it. I have always struggled with impatience. In my mind, progress only felt real if I could see the results quickly. When nothing obvious was happening, I assumed I was failing, even if I was actually learning or laying groundwork. This mindset followed me into game development. I started many projects, each one excited at the beginning. I will imagine the finished results and get super excited, but once I faced the reality of how long it will take, I became overwhelmed and quit soon after. The gap between where I was and where I wanted to be felt too large. Instead of pushing through, I give up and move on to something new. Over time, this pattern repeated again and again, leaving me with lots of unfinished ideas. After years of starting and abandoning projects, I reached a breaking point. I was so tired of having nothing to show for my efforts and tired of quitting on myself and my ideas. That's when I made a promise that I will commit to one game idea and see it through to the end, no matter how long it took or how uncomfortable the process felt. That's why I went back to my first game idea, that one that started me on this path, which is my current project Silent Corruption. Instead of chasing fast results, I chose consistency and patience. It was not easy at first. Breaking the habit of rushing things felt uncomfortable and frustrating. Many times I thought about quitting and switching to something easier, something that would give me faster results. Even so, I chose to stick with my decision and practice patience. Little by little, my perspective began to change. I started to realize that the final product, although it's important, is not the most important part of my project. What truly matters are the small results I achieve each day I show up and put in the work. Those small steps may feel insignificant on their own, but together they are slowly leading me exactly where I want to go. This change in perspective changed everything. It helped me enjoy the process much more and be comfortable working on a project that may take years before it looks any good. Because I can see progress every day and I know I'm not failing anymore. The first step to developing patience is understanding that patience is a skill that you train over time. It is not something you either have or don't have. Like any other skill, it grows through repetition, mistakes, and consistency. When you focus too much on the final result, it is easy to feel discouraged or overwhelmed, even when you're actually moving forward. Shifting your attention to the next small step makes the work feel manageable and grounded. One task at a time, one improvement at a time, and you build momentum without even realizing it. Over time, the small, deliberate steps add up. They shape not only the project you're working on, but also ways you approach challenges. Patience becomes less about waiting and more about trusting the process and continuing to show up even when progress feels invisible. All these struggles led to a simple truth. You always have two choices. You can choose the pain of doing, or you can choose the pain of not doing. The pain of doing is effort, uncertainty, and slow progress. It's showing up even when motivation is low and results are not obvious. It can be frustrating and uncomfortable, but it also comes with growth, learning, and the quiet satisfaction of moving forward. The pain of not doing is different. It's the regret of unfinished ideas, the frustration of wondering what could have been, and the feeling of staying stuck. It may feel easier in the moment, but it actually feels much worse. Both paths have a cost, but the gains are massively different. So the question becomes simple. Which path are you choosing today? Thank you very much for watching. If you want to keep learning more about the struggles of the creative journey and how to move forward without losing your mind, you can click on this next video. I'll see you there. Bye!